Hey, I'm Brian Kesling. I'm an illustrator, and I have a love and passion for cars and liveries and all things automotive. I did a series with Compound Edition, highlighting some of my favorite drawings that I've done, and hope you like it. What drew me to drawing these cars are like back in the 20s in racing. A lot of the logos and artwork on these race cars were typically hand painted. Sometimes they were done with like water-based paint, so the car would go race and then they would wash it off, and then if there was a different race, then they might be a different number. So I always loved that idea. There's not too many, but there's a few images of guys like hand painting like these numbers and stripes on these vehicles, and I always loved that like hand-drawn element. Being an illustrator, or that's my background of drawing. The idea of like drawing all these logos like on these actual cars drew me into that. And I don't know, I just love race cars, and so and the idea of racing these old Porsches is just, it's such, they're so iconic, and some of these cars just, they're already like what makes it more unique to each person or each driver is always really nice. And then Bigoli, it's just such I work with Myers Manx, that dune buggy company, who's they've been racing since the mid 60s. So when I went to, I guess before I went to college, I wanted to be a car designer. I've always loved cars, and I was dabbling with the idea of being a car designer. That subsided, and I ended up going into illustration. But I always loved, I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and that school has a huge car design department. And while I was there, seeing everyone draw these amazing cars, I think I had the love of the heritage and what makes these cars the cars, and keeping the proportions, and actually in the Porsche community there's these little details that separate it from one generation to another that are so minute, but it really makes this car unique to that car. And so I like to kind of keep those characteristics within the vehicles, but then also keep it loose, keep it fun, to kind of show more about the branding and these logos and stickers and kind of these iconic racing brands. So it's more to highlight these sponsors in this era of racing, than highlighting the specific body panels of the vehicle. And if you can see, like, some of the line work is really loose and very gestural, and I think that shows the racing element of this vehicle. The sponsors are really, I really tried to highlight the more iconic sponsors, and maybe there's always some that kind of overlap, whether it's like a spark plug or oil or whatever. But I think, to me, those logos were all designed by very famous, graphic designers back in their heyday, and they're so iconic in racing history that I love drawing all those logos and kind of messing around with it. And then some I kind of mess around with, and for example, like, instead of STP I did 356, and instead of Martini I did manual. There's that whole save the manual transmission movement. So doing subtle twists, but then others I've just kept them the same. I think just really because I love the way they are, and didn't really want to mess with it. But the other fun detail actually on that one is what I love about racing are, again, it goes back to like these handwritten notes or handwritten logos put on